Good morning. Thank you for being with us. My name is Nick Glue. I'm president of Marion Economic Development Corporation, and we're really pleased to have this future-focused session, which really is, we're calling it future-focused on industry. So many of you have joined us for several of our other events as part of our future-focused forums. We've talked about way back in the beginning in February, we kicked this off being future focused on mental health. We've talked about physical health, culture, community, development. This one is on industry. And so with that, we are very pleased to welcome Debi Durham. She's the director of the Iowa Economic Development Authority, as well as the Iowa Finance Authority. She was first appointed to lead IEDA back in 2011 and has just done a spectacular job leading our state, building IEDA into what it is today, recruiting great projects to our state, and just leading a great team. And so Debi, we know you're very busy. Thank you for being here this morning. So what we're going to do is Director Durham is going to give a presentation on this whole topic of manufacturing 4.0. There's been a lot of work that happened in the last legislative session that in some ways seems like a long time ago, but there's really a broader blueprint around this whole topic. And many of you may have heard a little bit about it. You're going to continue to hear more about it. In the end, we're going to talk about some additional ways that you can continue to educate yourself around this particular topic. So with that, I'm going to step aside and welcome Debi to our forum. And again, say thank you, Debi, for being here.
Oh, Nick, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to join you. So I'm going to go through some slides, and as anybody that's ever seen me present, I have a lot of them, but I go through them very quickly, so we'll have plenty of time for dialogue at the end. I always want to set basically some context before I start. So I always begin with this slide because this really kind of sums up of how we approach growth at the Iowa Economic Development and now the Iowa Finance Authority, our sister agency. We are about creating a business climate in which our businesses can prosper, and that's around taxation and regulatory environment. It is also about building communities that people want to live. But I always show that at the heart of everything we do, it's really about people, that creating opportunities for Iowa citizens in which they can thrive. The other way we approach growth is, again, just to level set, is we play to our strengths of who we are. So in Iowa, that is advanced manufacturing, biosciences, finance, and insurance. And I always show these two other traded clusters as horizontal, and that's information technology. So that's ed tech, if you will, in ed tech. And so that's basically innovation thread. And ed tech is something that's quite frankly crossing all of these because it's what we do to really prop up these, as far as training of employees to prop up these traded clusters. But for today's purpose, we're really going to focus on really biosciences and advanced manufacturing because, biosciences has a large line of sight to manufacturing as well. So the next two slides are just kind of tell you why they are so important to us. When you look at the biosciences in particular, and I think if COVID taught us anything, and we'll talk about that, tremendous opportunities have presented itself through the biosciences and opportunities that we had already identified with our work that we do, our research that we do with Tacotomy. Again, you're going to see within both of these sectors, advanced manufacturing and biosciences, really high R&D spends. You're going to see higher than average wages in the private sector, and again, tremendous amount of opportunities. Manufacturing, though, is who we are. That is our DNA. That is the largest part of a gross state product. Obviously, you can see that it's worth about $30 billion. And again, we're dealing with industries that on average pay about 25 to 30% more in wages. Again, just a few slides to really talk about the multiplier, because this is why I love manufacturing so much, because depending on whether you're durable or non-durable goods, it has anywhere between that 5+ and that 7+ multiplier. So that means for every job in manufacturing, there's a job in the economy that follows. The other thing is, again, a great deal of our R&D happens here. And, Iowa has probably one of the most robust R&D tax credits. It is fully refundable. It's 6.5%. And of course, if you're doing a project with us through High Quality Jobs, you can supplement that. This is one of the incentives that you will always see me defending with the legislature. I think it is so important to our economy because what we know is where people are doing their R&D, they're more likely to do their processing to follow. Plus, they're extremely high-paying jobs. Again, we talked about how this 18% of Iowa's total employment is in manufacturing. And if you compare that to US, that's about 10%. The other thing I think it's striking about our manufacturing is 27.2% of it is actually in the food manufacturing. And when we're going to be talking about Industry 4.0, this is one space that we really need to continue to see drive automation. When you thought about during COVID, when we were euthanizing all those animals, it wasn't because the demand as the consumer side wasn't there for it. It was that people couldn't show up for work. And so we have to continue to look for ways where automation could, so in the future that we don't have those kind of, devastating events, quite frankly. And the other thing that's really growing, and that's of course in your neck of the woods, is the aviation related manufacturing as well. All right, so that's who we are, and that's the importance of manufacturing. Now I'm going to talk about trends that are facing, because anytime we're doing public policy, we have to think of what's going on around us. So that's in the world of diversity and workforce, sustainability, automation, infrastructure. And infrastructure is very broad, but for today's presentation and conversation, we're going to really focus in on broadband and housing, the two barriers, quite frankly, of what we've seen to growth of our economy. And then, of course, anytime you're dealing with the economy, regardless of the year, there's a certain amount of uncertainty that we have to navigate. So I think there's some interesting statistics. If you think of Iowa, we have an aging population. We have a very slow population growth. That's not unlike many Midwestern states. What growth we've had from 2010 to 19, 44% of it is actually immigration. And in that same time frame, we're seeing our non-white population has increased by 32%. And then you couple that with this national statistic that's 10,000 baby boomers a day are retiring from our workforce. And this is across all sectors. I will tell you that COVID actually escalated that. We're going to talk about labor participation in a little bit and what we've seen the shrinkage during COVID. One of the things that happened is in Iowa, retirees have worked longer than they can, right, for their retirement. So you've seen them work 2 to 3 years beyond their retirement. Actually, we're seeing that kind of change. And that's going to be interesting, whether that's a temporary trend or if that's something that we're going to see here on out. So here is just a snapshot of time of basically what was going on at workforce development. And as you can see, we have more job openings than we have people. So we have a population problem in Iowa. Yes, we have a skill set problem, and we're working through that with Future Ready Iowa and many other initiatives. But overall, we have to grow Iowa's population. Here's some things, though, that happened during COVID that I think are extremely interesting. The demographic of our population that probably suffered the most was women, and I don't think that probably surprises any of you. The one that did surprise me, I have to say, is from a labor participation. The largest decline at 15.1% was women aged 45 to 54. The governor asked me why that is, and I have to tell you, I'm somewhat perplexed by that. So I don't know if it's a case where people are waiting later to have children, so it was a child care issue, or grandparents, which I find myself in, basically left the workforce to help their children with childcare, or they're being squeezed on the other end with elderly parents. So again, it certainly needs more exploration, but it's certainly a thought-provoking. This is what happened to millennials during COVID. Now, this was interesting. The millennials that could basically checked out. They decided there was no work-life balance. This working from home, there was just, it's not an 8 to 5 anymore. And I certainly saw that with our team that had to pivot and work from home. And, none of our work, in fact, our work load increased by twofold with all the relief programs. And you were seeing this just, so the millennials that could have just basically, they've checked out. And then, of course, the Gen Zs, they were the ones that were more likely to be laid off during COVID. However, Iowa, was rated as the most resilient state going into COVID and the most resilient state coming out. So then around sustainability, I always love my friend Jim Collins with Corteva because, this carbon neutral thing, whether you are a supply chain to some of these big traded companies, I mean, their shareholders are really demanding this. Consumers are demanding it. There is these very ambitious goals. How is Iowa going to navigate that when we are a production economy? And the millennials that we know, 64% want to work for a company who has strong corporate sustainability. One person asked me in a presentation why I cared about that. Well, I care because basically they are now the largest consumer group out there. They have now beat baby boomers. So it is important. And then, of course, we know with Gen Zs, they will pay more for sustainable products. So I will tell you, sustainability is not only the cost of doing business today, it is actually key to attracting a workforce. In the area of automation, this is a startling statistics to me. Digitalization expected to boost factory productivity by 25%. I haven't seen that kind of productivity increase in manufacturing forever. Now, there are some people that are scoffing at that, but I think it's real. I think that is truly achievable. And then when you look at the number of work hours that we can do that can be automated, and then everybody always fixates from public policy. Well, you're talking about replacing jobs. I'm telling you that is not the case. That's going to actually create jobs. It'll look different. But again, you have to look at all of this in light of those population numbers, right? How do we get there from here? And of course, there's 50 to 61% of all jobs in Iowa's counties that have the potential for automation. So we're not really concerned here about the John Deeres or the Collins, quite frankly. They're already well down this Industry 4.0 automation path. What we're concerned about are the supply chains and how do we help them? Because the OEMs, these large employers, are going to start putting pressure on their supply chain to meet certain of these Industry 4.0 initiatives. So what does that mean for us? In the area of infrastructure, we learned during COVID, you could live anywhere and run the world if you're connected. What does that say for us? Yet, but Iowa has one of the second lowest speeds in the nation. Then we also have access and I would even say cost issues around broadband. Of course, there was a great deal of investment in the last legislative session. When you look at housing units, we have low, you can just pick up any real estate. Houses are selling beyond market, what they're even asking for right now. There's low inventory. What we do have, so is very old stock. We also know that too many people, and of course, this is just what we estimate the housing growth is going to be based on our projection for growth. We also know a lot of Iowans are upside down in their house, meaning they're paying more for housing costs. So if they have that unexpected expense, it really creates some hardship. So let's look at uncertainty. This is startling to me. You're all having trouble finding employees. Here's part of the reason. So back in November of 2019, we had a 70.4% labor participation rate, which is pretty good. We went down to about 64% during COVID. Now, last month, we got up to 66.6%. I'm going to be curious to see what happens in September because there's still issues with childcare. And so it'll be interesting if people say, I'm going to just take off the summer, I'm going to come back. So I think in September and October, we're going to pay. But this is alarming to me, I will tell you, very concerning. And what is the reason for that? Obviously, inflation is here. All you have to do is go to the grocery store and see it, whether prices have gone up or quantities. Now I'm seeing that, maybe they're not raising their prices, but you don't get as much ice cream in the container or, orange juice. So they're actually shrinking down the package size. And I do not believe it's transitory. I believe that it is here to stay. And it's extremely concerning to me, particularly with all the money that's being proposed spending in Washington. And of course, all you have to do is go to the gas pump to see that. The microchip shortages, could last 2023. This is concerning because everything we buy anymore has this in it, whether it's a refrigerator to a car. I actually had a gentleman knock on our door one Sunday afternoon and ask if he could buy my husband's pickup because he can't find one. Of course, my response was, well, that works well. We could make some money, but then what are we going to do? So we didn't sell it. And of course, this was just a snapshot in time. We've seen lumber prices prices begin to stable a little bit, but still, again, commodities extremely high, which causes concern for us for projects. Industries looking to do expansions. We're seeing a lot of activity, and as well as in the housing front. And then when you see these cost runs up to 30 to 40%. And then, of course, supply chain. I mean, this is obviously concerning too, slowing things down. Deliveries are being very late. And again, we're seeing some relief, but not as much as I thought we would. So, of course, obviously, there's a certain amount of uncertainty we always have. But COVID taught us a lot. We were ranked #1 in opportunity. Like I said, we were ranked resilient state entering into COVID, exiting COVID. So we're in a really good position as a state. And I think Governor Reynolds made a lot of the right decisions, not shutting down the economy, basically stopping the unemployment supplemental when she did, because again, back to we have more jobs than people. But as far as opportunity in the bioscience, certainly bio-based chemicals, vaccines, and immunotherapy really rose to the top. This is a big play between both Iowa State University and the University of Iowa. You're going to see hopefully some more investment with recovery dollars with our universities in this. We've always really pretty well owned the animal vaccine space, but now you're seeing it more so on the human. And of course, medical devices, which is a big play with the University of Iowa. Extremely exciting stuff that's going on there. So again, these are just some slides about some of the work that we did during COVID and the things we'll be doing going forward. Obviously, bio-based chemicals, harvesting chemicals from that fuel line from biofuels, but we're also seeing with some of the work we're doing around carbon sequestration, the new task force. The governor announced that, how can we put more life back into our ethanol plants? I think you'll see a refocus on ethanol this next year, and how we can help them make the investments that they need to be more marketable as far as getting into like the California and Oregon marketplace. This is, again, some stuff we're doing with the university around proto studios, labs. We actually moved one of our printers that we helped fund at the university into the medical school. And when I was there meeting, there was 11 active projects on the board of surgeons that are going down there tinkering. And it's phenomenal because this is incredible, high-end, very advanced manufacturing that we really see in the future has huge opportunities for the state. Of course, connectivity, the legislature did invest $100 million last year. The goal is really to get to those 100 up speeds and 100 down, which is what we need to run an industry 4.0, regardless of the industry, certainly for manufacturing 4.0. But lots of money being spent, whether it's by us or the feds, on connectivity and making sure that we have access. So then I'm going to pivot really to our Manufacturing 4.0 initiative. We worked for about 18 months working with Tacotomy. Tacotomy does all of our baseline research and opportunity seeking. Everything we do from an economic development strategy is based on trends that we see, but more importantly, it's based on real strong market research of what we have. So here's what happened. Okay, so some of the things that would happen last session that Nick alluded to is, we finished the report. It's on our website. We will be doing a mailing with a couple of the executive summary to every single manufacturer in the state, making sure they're aware of what we're doing. We did propose a new grant program. This is for manufacturers of 75 employees and below to help them as they journey down this 4.0 journey. So we should open that in the fall. Plus, we got bonus depreciation across all industry, which we were very, very excited about. That's something we've been working on for a long time as these capital expenditures get made. So what is Industry 4.0? Well, it really is these subsets. It's about cybersecurity. It's augmented and virtual reality. It's about using big data. Of course, robotics and automation is part of it. Additive manufacturing, simulation, system integration, and cloud computing. The other thing on the grant program that we're running, we're partnering with CIRRUS. I'm a big fan of CIRRUS, which is located at Iowa State University. They're going to, anyone that comes forward with a grant does have to do an assessment on 4.0 to make sure, first of all, there's a plan. It's not just buying you a piece of equipment or a piece of software. It really is, how is that being integrated into adding efficiencies into your manufacturing floor? So there's several levels of assessment. It's not burdensome, I can tell you. To do this, you can do a full-blown assessment, which is a lot more detailed, and that really is depending on you, but that will be a requirement. So I'm telling you this, that when the grants open in this fall, you're going to have the CIRRUS. So you can go ahead and start reaching out to CIRRUS. There's their contact down there if you want to talk to them about this assessment. Again, it's going to be 51% of revenue has to be sales for manufactured goods. You have to be in operation for at least 3 years. And the size is 3 to 75 full-time employees. I actually wanted it a little larger, but the legislative session is all about compromise. So we'll see how that goes. We may have to come back and ask for some extension of that. So what does that mean? You can get up to $50,000. It's for the purchase of specialized equipment aimed at manufacturers. We are in the process of launching. We have not launched it yet. It actually in Manufacturing 4.0 website that will be part of the IEDA website. And then there's investment grants for the Internet of Things. So we're pretty excited about this. There's only 1 or 2 other states that have done this. The one that we have talked with that was great to share information, talked about when they opened it up, this was just really widely accepted. And we know it's going to go like crazy because we've already getting a lot of questions on this. So here's some things that you can expect. The governor will be doing a press conference announcing the website launch. Hopefully that will be early August. I think it's all ready. It's just ready to go. The executive summary that we talked about will be doing a mailing to all Iowa manufacturers. So Nick, if you've got a list of all your manufacturers, if you want to just send that to me just to make sure, because sometimes our lists aren't what they need to be. Maybe just to make sure we can basically data mine it with our list and make sure we haven't left anyone out in your area. We'd be happy to do that. And I think that's scheduled to go out in the next couple of weeks as well. Of course, we talked about the Industry 4.0. The other thing I think that's important to mention about this is that all of our studies are industry-led, so it's not government employees sitting around a table saying, here's what we want. We have this Innovation Council, and it's all made up of the private sector. The researchers are there, meaning the research universities, the community colleges, service providers, but everything we do from a research analysis coming up with public policy is all done by industry. The other thing that you're going to see won't be on the website when it first gets launched, Nick, but it's coming, is the Supply Chain Clearinghouse. It's kind of like a dating service, if you will. As I'm out and about, we find out, particularly with the supply chain constraints of coming in overseas, that we have to resource more of that. And we're trying to do that. But it's just, there's not a really efficient way. So we're hoping that this portal, which will be a matchmaking thing and it'll be confidential, that can help if someone says, I have a need and I'm looking for it. And let me just give you an example. I visited a biomedical device company in Iowa City recently. They're just getting FDA approval. They've done some prototyping with our 3D manufacturing, but now they need to manufacture. I don't want it to go to Minneapolis. So we actually reached out to a manufacturer in Iowa, and they're looking to see if they can do that for them. So again, but that was just me using, my network to make that connection. We need a better way to do it because, not in every manufacturer, but that's what we want to see. We want to see more and more using of other Iowa manufacturers in that supply chain. So I'm very excited. The other thing that's happening is the OEMs, and those are the large manufacturers in the state. They are now meeting quarterly, which they've never done before. It's really great to talk about ways that they can help their supply chain. And things that we just need to be looking for trends and stuff moving forward. So we're really very excited about that. So that's the presentation. So I will pause and stop sharing, and then we can have a conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. That's all. That's all you have going. That's very impressive.
That's all I have going. This is just in that front. I can talk to you about carbon sequestration, which, I get giddy about actually. Or, there's 101 things or creative placemaking that I'm hoping to come forward. This is just in the manufacturing front. So
that's great. Well, let me just pause because we do have some representatives from manufacturing on the call, or any of you for that matter. Just on some of these things that Debbie has just talked about around Industry 4.0, what questions do you have? What feedback do you have? You should be set up to just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask those questions directly to Director Durham. So I'll just pause for a second and ask for any questions from the group.
I see my friend Joe up there. I haven't seen Joe for a while. How are you?
Hey, Debbie, really nice to at least hear from you. It's been an interesting last year and a half, hasn't it?
It really has. It has, for sure.
I'm going to get out today and do a couple lender visits and visit the Clayton County, and hopefully, we'll get the world alive again. It seems like
that's good. I was just telling Nick before we started, I'm in 3 communities today. I'm going to depart right after this, go look at some of our Main Street projects that we've been doing. And it is so good to get out among people again.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So thank you very much for being here. Your insight is fabulous. And I someday hope to be like you. I mean, just incredible.
Well, I have a lot of help with a lot of friends. You know that. I've got a great team there for sure.
That's true.
Any questions quick while we pause? I've got plenty I can throw at Debbie.
Yeah.
Hi, Debbie. This is Jeff Spadero. Hey, I had a quick question. And by the way, great.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Good, good. Do you know what percentage of Iowa manufacturers fall into that, 3 to 75 employee category? Either percentage.
I don't have the right. I don't. That's a great question, and I don't have the exact percentage. Maybe as we're sitting here, Michael could text Jill and ask. All I know is that when we settled on that, that's where we found out was the sweet spot was into that 3 to 7 or 75 people. So, but we'll find out what that is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it wasn't pulled out of the air. I mean, it really was based on that where most of Iowa's employers, but I just don't know, or manufacturers fall, but I just don't know what it is. Because you've been working with us on this whole initiative. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I thought you were.
Awesome. Well, thanks for all your work on this. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Debbie, just for a little context, how much from a dollar standpoint does your team have available in this budget year for these grants?
Well, that's an interesting question because we're going to start with about $2 to $3 million. I think we're going to blow through that pretty quick, Nick. And so I'm working on trying to figure out a way to find more money, I guess, is the answer. But I think at least I know we're going to have close to $3 million for sure. But I don't want to have to turn people away. So if we see a bigger demand, I will see what I can do for rearranging some budget items and get some more money in there. But that's what we're estimating on based on what we've heard in other states that we've talked about that have done this.
Other questions from the group? So while we're talking about dollars, it's been interesting. Even here in our local community, at the county level, I know at the state level as well, there continues to be these large dollar amounts coming from the federal government through various levels of government. Are there any ways that you and your team are watching some of those dollars, and could some of those dollars support some of the initiatives that we've talked about over the last few minutes?
Absolutely. And again, very insightful question. There is a program that the Treasury has run, and it's called SSBCI, and I wish I could tell you what that stood for, but it's a program that we utilized about 10 years ago to prop up our innovation funding, believe it or not. It's probably one of the best, I believe, true stimulus program there is, and was excited to see it come back. Iowa has been allocated about $80-some million, but we will receive that in tranches. So I think our first tranche is, high 20s, early 30s. if what we're going to get. We have to have our plan presented to Treasury by the end of December. Jill Lippincott, who runs all of this Industry 4.0 and the innovation platform, has been working on it, getting stakeholder plans. And part of that's going to be, we're working, we've been having conversations with SBA because, listen, we know the grants are not going to be for everyone, and there's still additional funding that needs to be done for manufacturing to make this transition. And so what we're hoping is that we can come in with bigger dollars to do basically subordination loans with local banks. So we never wanted the state to compete with banks. I mean, that is not our position. But there is a subordination route or a guarantee. And so we're working with the Bankers Association of Iowa, community banks, to really talk about what we need to do to see whether we want to basically do a guarantee for loans for capitalization for new equipment, automation, or whether we're going to do a subordination, and we have not, or take out a second, or however we do that. So anyway, that's one of the things that we're working on. So that's going to be coming forward, and I'm pretty excited about that as well. The other part about that is going to be more money for our targeted small business programs, and being more strategic there to help them. We have a micro lending, but this would be the same thing where we work with a bank as we get people more credit worthy in that small business space. So there's other components on it, but there certainly will be a play for manufacturing as part of our plan. Like I said, we'll have that submitted in December, and then we should have the money first quarter. But once we get the money, our plan is to have the infrastructure already laid out so that we can hit the ground running with that. The thing I like about this program is it really holds us to really high return on investment. So the whole portfolio that we present has to have, I think, like a 10-to-1 return. So isn't that novel, a government agency that's actually concerned about return on investment? But anyway, so we're excited about that. And so that's coming. So there's some additional funding that will come with that as well.
I will pause after this next question for additional questions from the audience.
Nick, can I butt in here just real
Please,
fast?
Joe, yes.
Just to follow up on with Debbie, our supply chain, manufacturing, exporting, a lot of people don't know that we have a 90% guarantee with our lenders that let's say somebody supplies a widget to John Deere and the tractor goes to Japan, they're going to get a 90% guarantee, the lender is, on the money that they're lending to the small business to help with that. So partnering, with all of these programs together is really important, and people just need to, reach out to their lender and mention the SBA and mention the governor's programs and all that.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. And we'll make sure, obviously Jill works very closely with the SBA, but we do need to make sure on Manufacturing 4.0, all those programs are on there talking about that. Because Joe, that's a really, really good point that you make. So, there's a lot of resources. It's just really connecting, where's an easy way to connect people? You have everything at one place, and that's what we're hoping this site will do.
Let's talk about workforce real briefly. You had some really interesting stats. I think, we're watching a lot of those on our regional level about labor participation rate. And it's very fascinating. It's 1 month we can, at a regional level, move a tick in the right direction. The next month we move back. I'm like you, very interested to see what happens this September with folks going back to school and some of these assumptions that we have as far as why people are not in the workforce. I'm with you. I think September will be a very interesting month. But you brought up the topic of immigration. And we know that quite simply, we can talk about equipping folks with the right skills, making sure they're educated in the right way. At the end of the day, it's even less complicated than that. I agree. It's about we need to grow Iowa's population. So on an immigration standpoint, we talk about this across our professional association, Professional Developers of Iowa. A lot of times we look at immigration and most of the policy around that is really a federal issue. Yep. How can and should or are we at the state level working to try and influence some of those topics, and how can we be working more closely with those policymakers to really address the system that many people seem to maybe not want to address?
Yeah, so, first of all, it's a really good question. We've always been very active on the H-1B visas, right? The skilled set. So we've always been trying to work on getting an increase there. I don't know if you saw, but the pork industry basically testified before Senator Grassley's committee just recently, the Judicial Committee, or the committee that he's on. I guess he's not leading it now, but about migrant workers and what needs to happen there. And the other thing is, I think as a state, and these are conversations, quite frankly, we're having internally, so I don't know that I have a lot of good answers for you today, but we have some refugee populations here that I think that provide tremendous opportunity, but we need to provide wraparound services, right? You can't just, and I think we've learned that when even people industries have recruited in for Puerto Rico. It looks great, they're US citizens, you don't have the immigration issue. Some people have had success with that, others that have not, and the ones that have not have been the ones that haven't engaged the community, because it's a community effort, right? And so what we've talked about with the state, particularly with some of our CARES, or I guess not CARES anymore, but recovery funds, is there a way that we can work with these, whether it's licensing? Many of them come in here with skills, but they can't use their licensing because of, the translation of it. But housing, transportation. So can we do some pilot programs around the refugee camps, or the refugees population that we have as far as wraparound services? The other thing we were talking about, there's still a lot of subsidy flowing, Nick. I mean, even though the governor stopped the extra $300, and I was in great support of that. In fact, Beth Townsend and Director Townsend with IWD recommended that. But we're still running a lot of rent, and utilities, and you're doing a lot of that. When I asked the Treasury on Friday, and I didn't get a really great answer yet, I didn't get a no, Nick, so I take that as a sign we should run ahead, is one of the things I've refused to do with the rent program is to forward fund. The government allows us to forward fund 3 months rent, and I have not been willing to do that. What I did say, though, is, well, to me, we should be giving a helping hand for those that are actually working, right? It's that reward for work, not reward for staying home. And so can we take those that are still working, and maybe they're working part-time, or maybe they're underemployed, and work with IWD and an employer to get them skilled, so that, again, because to me, we all as Iowans want to give a helping hand, but keeping people on subsidy is not a winning proposal for anyone, including the individuals. We need to help them be sustainable. And so can we look at, yes, we're willing to do these helping hands, but only if you're willing to work with us to up your skills so that you become more sustainable. I think it could be a model. So, we're putting together a proposal for Treasury, whether they'll let us do this or not. And even if they say no, maybe we don't use their funds, maybe we will find other funds to do it. It's kind of like the same thing we talked about with childcare, the cliff effect. And we've talked about that as we see, particularly women who have said they can't take a raise because once they take a raise, we pull the safety net out from them with childcare. And now we're doing that on a graduated basis. So yes, we want you to better yourself. We want you to eventually get off subsidy, but we're not going to pull the rug out. We're just going to, basically right size it based on your income level. I think we can do the same thing with some of these other programs. So those are things that we're talking about. But stay tuned. The governor is actually going to do a listening tour. I guess I just learned I'm going with her starting next week. We're going to spend a full day together. We're going to go out to communities, and she wants to do a listening tour with employers of all sizes and kinds to just hear what they're saying. And then to kind of, I think what you'll see next legislative session is going to be workforce, everything from recruiting. And by the way, you should see some of the new marketing stuff we're doing around This Is Iowa. It is fabulous. And we just showed the governor a video. You're going to see us, do marketing like in, television that we haven't ever done before. We're going to be spending a lot of money on just really reframing Iowa in the national marketplace to, again, begin to attract people. And we have a great story to tell. So all very exciting.
Fascinating. I like the tease of that program. Keep up the great work. We'll stay tuned on the housing
Good.
assistance. That's very interesting. So thank you. Any other questions from the group? I've got one more question that I think will lead into a nice closing next, and we'll equip you guys with some next steps that you can take after today. But any remaining questions from participants on the call here? So as we close, I just want to again preview. Debbie, you mentioned a consortium of folks who are working together to really continue to develop and push out and equip companies around how they can engage in, whether it be automation, big data, whatever it might be, but just understanding what is this whole topic, and how do we as a company best equip ourselves to frankly not be left behind in this space. So
Correct.
there's this consortium that's working together. You talked about Cirrus really kind of driving that. Our community colleges are engaged. What do we really expect out of that consortium beyond the high level things that I just stated?
Well, the consortium is going to continue to meet, and we're going to continue to bring forth policy around workforce training and development. You're going to see one of the things I didn't even talk about, Nick, is micro-credentialing. I'm extremely excited about this. So it's no longer even a 2-year degree, right? And it's really about, you could get a cybersecurity badge for micro-credentialing. And it may not be just your community college provider. It could be Iowa State, who has this huge division. So you're going to start to see us working with community colleges and all the higher education and even some private providers on this credentialing. So micro-credentialing is coming. I think in the future, we have to figure out how we fund a lot of workforce training. The 260E is a great program if you're hiring people, but a lot of these plants are not going to be hiring anyone, right? They're going to be basically retrofitting and retraining their staff. We need a more robust 260F program and other training. So our work has really just begun. I have to tell you, I'm thrilled that we got the bonus depreciation. That is absolutely huge, and these small grants, but our work is not done around this. So, basically, how accessible we are. If you have a question, reach out directly. We'll make sure to connect you. Again, if you can send me your manufacturing list, I want to make sure we have everyone, because we'll be sending information out when we launch the site. I'm really proud of the work we've done, because, we're one of the few states that really is addressing this the way we have, in a very comprehensive way. And then we're going to continue to look at the federal policies around immigration. We're going to be looking about bond capacity. We have industrial revenue bonds. Nobody uses them because they're not right sized. They're very old school model, but yet that could be retrofitted to make, that kind of capital available to our manufacturers. So I have a laundry list of things. Our work has just begun, but it is a very dynamic space. But again, I think I would be remiss to not thank the manufacturers on the phone. First of all, thank you for what you do. Do look at us as a resource. And, if you're having issues, regardless of what it is, reach out. We certainly can connect you with other agencies. And even if it's a DNR permitting, I had a manufacturer call me the other day on a DNR issue. I'm able to work very collaborative with other directors. We have that solved very quickly in a very pragmatic way. So think of us as kind of your concierge to government, right? Whether it's workforce development or anything else, we can connect you with who you need to. You'll get to I don't know if I can always get you exactly what you want, but I can at least get you to a real live person to talk to that is a decision maker. How about that?
We always appreciate that, Debbie, your accessibility of yourself and your entire team whenever we have questions. So thank you for the leadership that you and your team provide and the accessibility. Again, just as far as the next step is concerned, so here in our part of the state, Kirkwood Community College is actually beginning a session of webinars around this topic of Industry 4.0. If you go to our website, medcoiowa.org, click on our events module, you will actually see that their first session is scheduled tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So if you're just soaking this in and want to continue educating yourself, you can sign up for that. Just jump on our website to do that. And then they have, the series really continues July 29th, August 4th. August 11th. Go to the website and find a topic that's of interest to you. So thanks to Kirkwood for your regional leadership on that. So,
And Nick, we just found out from our Rockstar research team, Jeff, your question answer is 56%. Yes, of manufacturers in that size space. So
great.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Debbie, thank you to you and your team for being here today. We appreciate it. Lots of great information as always. So thank you for your time. I know you're extremely busy.
always good to see you all. Thanks. Have a great day.
I'd also remind you all, we have kind of a culmination of this future focused event series coming on the 1-year anniversary of the DeRate Show. We're going to pull everybody together. That would be August 10th. To in some ways kind of celebrate the resiliency that we have continued to maintain as a community as reflect on the past year. So if you haven't had an opportunity to register for that, there is no cost to attend. Again, just go to our website and do that. We'd love to see you August 10th. We're hosting it in the Depot Uptown, which if you haven't been to our Uptown lately, it is the epicenter of activity. Our city is finishing its library. Our significant streetscape project through the core of our downtown is underway. Great redevelopment projects by our friend Mark Cottrell is underway. He's going to be there. We just want to really bring everybody together, network, and celebrate just how far we have come in really kind of a difficult and challenging year. So sign up for that. We'd like to see you there. So Debbie, thanks again. Take care, everybody.